In many of such instances, the most obvious, immediate, and practical shift occurs around his technological devices. And so, devices that were once left casually on the counter for easy access suddenly become highly guarded assets. With time, he begins placing his phone face down on surfaces. Progressively, he changes passwords he has had for years. He tries regularly to clear his search histories. He usually becomes visibly anxious or irritated if you happen to pick up any of his devices to look at something so innocent as weather updates, checking the time, and maybe respond to an incoming call. You're welcome to my channel, Relationship Psychology. I encourage you to like this video, stay on with me to the end of it, and share your thoughts on what you're watching. When a man's emotional or physical energy is suddenly diverted toward a new romantic interest, his behavioral patterns in his primary relationship will almost always undergo distinct steady shift. Actually, in behavioral psychology, this gradual or sudden change occurs because the human brain is poorly equipped to effectively manage the psychological friction of a double edged life. And so, to efficiently maintain a connection with another woman while staying in his current relationship with you, a man must have to constantly partition his time, his thoughts, and his emotions. This internal division apparently creates distinct behavioral signals, very deep emotional distance, and clear cut micro expressions that are extremely difficult to hide with time. We are currently looking at a very comprehensive psychological breakdown of how a man acts when another woman enters the picture. In many of such instances, the most obvious, immediate, and practical shift occurs around his technological devices. And so, devices that were once left casually on the counter for easy access suddenly become highly guarded assets. With time, he begins placing his phone face down on surfaces. Progressively, he changes passwords he has had for years. He tries regularly to clear his search histories. He usually becomes visibly anxious or irritated if you happen to pick up any of his devices to look at something so innocent as weather updates, checking the time, and maybe respond to an incoming call. In fact, this hyper vigilance is clearly a direct result of his internal sense of guilt and fear of exposure. More or less, the phone happens to be the bridge to the other woman. For that reason, strictly protecting the phone becomes synonymous with protecting his primary secret, what he will not want you to find out or know about. It remains a firmly established phenomenon that in relationship dynamics, a man's emotional capacity is finite. And so when his romantic focus, his sense of infatuation, his attention is partially or fully being poured into an incoming woman, someone he may consider fresh and new, he tends to naturally have less to offer you being his primary partner. Gradually, he may at some point be with you physically in the room, but will practically be mentally and emotionally absent while still with you. In worst cases, he may stop asking about how your day went. He may even forget about some major details you might have shared with him. Concerning as this may be to most women, oftentimes when both of you are in a conversation, whether serious or casual, he tends to struggle with keeping deep eye contact with you. Soon as his behavioral change deepens, he will stop planning dates and will no longer, as before, want to initiate conversations. Slowly, his relationship with you will dive deep into a state of low stakes maintenance mode because his creative romantic energy is being unleashed elsewhere with another woman. One of the most confusing behaviors a woman will likely encounter in this scenario is a sudden, unprovoked rise in criticism, picking needless fights, and defensiveness from the man. The truth is, deep down, most men experience cognitive dissonance when they cheat or entertain another woman. Their actions conflict with their image of themselves as a good man. And to resolve this internal guilt, his brain unconsciously looks for supposedly sound reasons to justify his behavior. He will start rewriting the history of your relationship intentionally for majority of the time. He will pick needless fights over minor things and blow them out of proportion. And by convincing himself that you are a nagging, an incompatible, and a difficult partner, he will shamelessly rationalize his choice to look elsewhere. Practically, because he is trying so hard to manage two separate emotional worlds, a man's behavior toward you may swing wildly between a cold distance and a sudden uncharacteristic warmth. Often, after a period of intense detachment, out of shame and guilt, he might suddenly bring home a random gift, intentionally cook dinner, and maybe offer a grand compliment to sway your thoughts. This suspicious behavior he puts up is often driven by a wave of acute guilt after spending time with or perhaps thinking about the other woman. However, this warmth is usually short lived. As soon as the sense of guilt subsides, his mind will drift back to the new connection he has with the other woman. And then the cold, distant framework established because of the other woman will return just as quickly as is expected. When a human being enters a new romantic phase, even if it is an innocent one, their brain experiences a massive spike in dopamine. This chemical rush often triggers a desire to reinvent or upgrade themselves. This is the same mindset a man who may be seeing another woman likely develops. He may suddenly start working out intensely. He will spend on new clothes. He will invest much more time grooming to look good before leaving the house. Humans naturally adopt the speech patterns and interest of the people we spend much time with. And so, if you notice that he has suddenly started using new strange phrases, he is now listening to a completely different genre of music. He is expressing very deep interest in a hobby he previously disliked. It is a clear indication. he's likely reflecting the influence of the other woman. Basically, how a man acts when there is another woman in his life is mostly defined by one primary overarching theme: the fragmentation of his integrity. In reality, he cannot be fully present in two different places at the same time. Noticeably, a man's secrecy mode, his sudden state of defensiveness, and his emotional withdrawal outlook are the natural side effects of him trying to preserve his comfort while compromising his own character. Apparently, a high value woman does not stay in the shadows of a relationship waiting to see if she will be chosen. She understands that her presence is a privilege. And so, if a man wishes to scatter his focus, if he wishes to entertain options, if he wishes to treat his primary partner as a convenient fallback plan, a woman of high standards does not lower herself to investigate her secrets or beg for his phone password. Far from that, she will simply step back. She will recognize his lack of alignment and enforce the ultimate consequence, being her complete permanent absence. By holding a steady frame of self respect, you, the woman, ensure that you never have to fight for a place in a man's heart, because a relationship built on strongly divided attention is a structure that is already entirely empty, frail, and broken. I thank you for making it to this end of this very video. I encourage you to stay healthy, stay mentally strong, and always keep love leading the way. One love.